Luke Morrow in for Reggie today alongside John Lopez. Figgy Fig on the ones and twos. Have the Texans already failed? That's my question. The fill-in today. I'm asking that as we get ready for this upcoming season with the schedule release earlier this week. You can always text or call the show 713-572-4610. I was listening to a lot of the station yesterday to hear what everyone thought about the schedule. And let me first say I was in agreement. This is not me calling out anybody on these airwaves.
Oh, go ahead.
And I heard, no, I won't do. I think that's already happened to you, right? Recently, I won't do that again. Learn my lesson vicariously. But I heard yesterday. I think both of you guys yesterday said 10-7 for the prediction, which is where I'm at. Mm-hmm. I listened to In the Drive and or the Drive, I should say, and Ron was I think 10-7 as well. Clint was 9-8, and so it just got me thinking as I heard these predictions, and a lot of I know Texans fans, and it got me thinking: is this already kind of set up for a failure? If the Texans go 10-7 again, and by the way, how much of a shot do you actually give them in that game against the Ravens this year, or in that game against the Chiefs this regular season?
Yeah.
If they go 10-7 and lose those games, maybe lose them badly, like how do we feel about that season, especially when it's just kind of a repeat of what we just had last year?
No, look, I hadn't thought of it like that. If they go 10-7, and you just laid it out, it's by and large, at least on this station, I think Figgy, you ended up 12.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Some optimism.
So I did not have them beating the Ravens.
Yeah.
I did have them beating the Chiefs.
Ooh.
Okay.
Nighttime December game in Kansas City.
Look
at you.
So, yeah.
But you acknowledge, I think we all acknowledge, 10-7, maybe 11-6.
That's probably more reasonable.
That's more reasonable. I hadn't thought of it like that because flat out, if we are here in however many months it is, in January, and they finish the season, they're going into the playoffs 10-7. I think we're all going to be saying, well, that didn't work out like we thought.
Right.
Even though we thought 10-7.
Right. Yeah.
And they probably losing a lot of key games too. Mm-hmm. We're just like, man, how you lose to the Titans?
Yeah.
Or the Jags? Or
that's part of it because I also heard most people say, oh, they'll go 5-1 against the division, maybe even 6-0.
Yeah.
But if you do the math, if you subtract that 10-7 record, 5-1 against the division, that means 5-6 against the rest of the league. We're talking about a losing team outside of a bad division. That shouldn't be acceptable.
Yeah.
And it'd be 10-7. It reminds me of almost Drew Brees. He went through that stretch. He had 3 straight 8-8 seasons in New Orleans. And it's like we're kind of wasting the prime of this guy.
Yeah.
You have C.J. Stroud on this rookie quarterback where you don't have to pay him yet. And if you're just going to have another 10-7 season and you still are not close to being able to beat the Ravens or maybe even the Chiefs, it's like, man, we're kind of just treading water here. And we're not advancing. We're not progressing like we're supposed to be.
I think that's a solid point. Like I said, that I hadn't even really thought of. If we're all saying 10-7, then we're saying,
just run it back.
That's
I think
kind of the new average a little bit.
And this isn't unique to us, but I think we're all confidently hopeful that certain things will work out. Now that's kind of a fool's errand sometimes. Hey, we think the offensive line, but what I've been saying is they got 17 dudes in the room right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're bound to find 5 or 8 or 7 on game day that are good. But that's still hope. That's still like confidence, and maybe hope that they'll do it. Here we are with the wide receivers really high on some of the, Higgins and Knoll that they brought in. But that's still hope,
Yeah.
So if reasonably looking at it, I feel 10-7. So yeah, if we're still here, we'll be like disappointed.
Yeah, and that's my concern is that seems to be the expectation, 10-7. But then once that season plays out, it's like, oh man, third straight year, 10-7, win the division, maybe win a playoff game, lose the set. We're no closer to competing for a Super Bowl, and that's what you should be doing. The quarterback. Do you feel better? Let's run through some of these concerns from a year ago to now.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive coordinator, big question mark. We don't know which direction that's going to go in. But do you feel better about the offensive coordinator now compared to last year?
Oh, not even close. I was more confident last year.
Right.
100%. Coming off the year that he had, head coaching interviews.
So you don't feel better?
Well, if that's the question, I'm not saying I don't have that hopeful
Yeah.
confidence.
But just comparing to
Nick
last
Haley.
year.
But how I feel about the coordinator now versus last year, I mean, everybody felt good about Bobby Slowick.
I actually don't feel good
Even
about
compared to last year at this time?
last year. I felt good last year. Honestly, I was more on board of maybe Bobby sticking around for another year and see what they do with the offensive line and kind of shuffle some stuff.
Yeah, I think
because I know that wasn't going to happen, but I kind of wanted to see what they do with maybe a different offensive line and maybe try to do some other things.
Yeah. What about the wide receiving core?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
I probably felt better. I'm optimistic. I think the ceiling is high for this wide receiving core. I also think maybe these draft picks don't work out and Christian Kirk's still injured. I think, if I'm being honest, I felt better about the group at this time last year in the wide receiver room than I do right now.
I think I did too. Remember the five-headed monster?
Mm-hmm.
None of them were rookies either.
Yeah.
You had Stephon Diggs, you had Tank Dell. Oh, boy, what a year he's going to have.
Yeah.
Now, I know there were circumstances that were out of his control, but obviously Nico coming off a good year.
Nico. We thought John Mechie was going to take a step.
We thought, well, but even if you didn't down to have a good year, a better year, I should say, and then you bring in Joe Mixon, all right. And I know we left it specifically to receivers, but the five-headed monster was all experienced, all pretty much proven.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case this year.
No, it's not. Yeah. Offensive line. Do you feel better today about the offensive line than you did this time a year ago?
Now that one I might say yes, simply because of what I put. What I said earlier about sheer numbers. You're bound to find someone. And by the way, I know there are big questions. You and I had this discussion last time we were on the air together about Trent Brown versus Cam Robinson and all that. But they are proven. You do have another draft pick. You do have some solid options that have at least played and started on the interior line. That one I will say I do have more confidence in.
I feel better about that one. I feel better about the future of the offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about. To me, I'm a little worried about left tackle and the interior for this year, this year going forward.
Yeah,
I think I'm with you. I feel better about the future. I don't know about the here and now or the start of the season. Might be a little rocky
because you did give up. I don't care what y'all say, a top 5 tackle and Laramie Tunsil for Cam Robinson right now. I just don't know how that will work out right now.
And then the last one I'll ask: defense obviously is supposed to be really good. It was really good last year, but the one position people kind of nitpick is interior defensive line, defensive tackle. Do you feel better about defensive tackles now than you did last year?
I think I do.
Okay.
I think I do. Some of these defense. Well, I think they're really good on the edges, and they're going to be better on the edges. I feel, which is going to make the interior defensive line, I think, better. And of course with Fatukasi, back
Sheldon Rankins
and Mario. I think. What about you? Because I'm sensing you do not.
I was kind of the same.
Yeah.
I don't feel worse. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I feel better. I think I'm kind of neutral. Mm-hmm. Now, I've been saying all offseason, though, I'm not that concerned. The defense is so good that I think I'm not that worried about interior defensive line.
Yeah.
And maybe it is a slight improvement compared to a year ago, but overall, I'm not that worried about it.
Yeah.
On the text line, 713-572-4610 from the 832, they said, based on the 10-7 prediction of 6'10" on-air personalities, did the Texans already fail? I'm pretty sure the Texans don't give a rip about your predictions. No, they haven't already failed. That's fair, but I'd also say this. The Vegas win total's 9.5. Mm-hmm. So it's not just us crazy guys over here at 6'10". Vegas, who you usually know what they're doing, they put the Texans right there around 9-8, 10-7, which would be pretty much a duplicate of the last 2 seasons.
And we didn't say they already failed. If you want them to be honest,
that was just
we
my
said
question.
If we are here at the end of the year, and they're 10-7, I think we'll feel as if that wasn't what we thought it would be.
No, and that's and look, I asked the question. I'll own it. Put it on me. I'll be the wet blanket here. Mm-hmm. That was my nickname at the sleepovers growing up. Wet blanket. Let's see. Also on the text line, I don't care if they go 9-8. The bar is to make it to the AFC.
Fair.
I think that is fair.
But 9-8 is a much tougher road.
Yeah.
We know that.
And how confident would you be getting into the playoffs at 9-8?
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about.
Because unless you feel like the 8 losses were all hard teams.
And they do have the hardest schedule in the division, but that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, because, and I've brought this up before, it turned into a whole nother thing with Ron and my principles when it comes to but I always say don't bring flowers on the first date because you set the bar too high for following dates.
Yeah.
And I think when the Texans win 10 games in year one and win a playoff game in year one, you have to keep taking those next steps. In year two, you have to win a second playoff game, right? And so now here we are in year three where that should be the expectation is to
100%.
make it to the AFC title game. I mean, at least.
Yeah, because how did y'all feel about the season last year? Do you feel like it was a bit disappointing?
Everybody does.
Yeah,
Everybody does.
And I think part of that reason is because D'Amico Ryan's first year, they won 10 games and made it to and won the playoff game. So now that following year, we expected to get to an AFC championship game and compete with the Chiefs and the Ravens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
From the 8-3-2, they also point out first place schedule. I don't know if that's a concern, but then they also say playoffs is what matters. It matters in both senses. They need to be in the playoffs this year, and then it matters, obviously, that's where whatever you do in the regular season, you have to obviously win games in the playoffs.
Well, the first place schedule makes it maybe you grading on a curve 10-7 versus having a last place schedule, 10-7.
That's fair.
So
Okay.
I think that's what he's talking about, or she, and that's more than fair.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that. But it's me asking hearing all these predictions and thinking, man, if they go 10-7 for the third straight year, that just feels like a letdown when you have the young cheap quarterback.
Yeah.